Yo, 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 what's good? What's happening, Rush Nation? Welcome to episode 81 of 5 Yard College. Congratulations, Georgia. Here's to you. The national championship is finally over, Jord. As you can see, if you are watching this on the stream or on the video later on via YouTube, Ash isn't here. He is once again off battling those Middle Earth demons of the aviation industry. So I've got my second main man, Jord. He's back again, Rush Nation. Jord, thanks for stepping into Ash's boots, which are now, I would say, hard to fill, but the top where you put your foot in is now like a vast gaping hole. So it's just slide on in there, man. Welcome back.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm used to it now. I get ready each week because Ash just gallivants all over now, doesn't he? He's becoming more of a traveller than he used to be anyway. So I'm always ready. I like to share it out for other people to have a go, but I'm always ready to jump in if Ash needs to, wherever he goes. I'm not sure where he goes, but he's always on a mission.
Yeah, well, yeah, we offered it out to Jake, obviously being a Bama fan, but he's working hard in the office. That boy works some stupid hours. So big up, Jake. I imagine you'll be listening tomorrow. Couldn't get him on for a Bama fan. Tom didn't want to come on. Tom didn't reply to coming on because he's obviously the Georgia fan from the Lonely Hearts Club. I did want to ask Ash today, Jord, how close Tom got to choosing Oklahoma in the Lonely Hearts Club. I can't remember how far Oklahoma got, but that would have been a complete 360 on becoming a Georgia fan. Obviously, Georgia now have the national championship, 41 years wait. Oklahoma would have been the complete opposite in reaction because Riley's gone. Caleb Williams is now in the transfer portal. All of their commits are decommitting. People are transferring out. The program is in complete flip to Georgia right now. So it would have been hugely interesting to see how Tom fared as a Oklahoma fan this year as opposed to a Georgia fan. But luckily for Tom, he found Georgia. And his first year in supporting a college team, he's got himself a Natty. So, very lucky, Tom. Or was it fate? I don't know, Jordan. What do you reckon?
Well, he's definitely, if he can see the future, and we need to ask him for lottery numbers, don't we? Or,
we do.
But yeah, it's fair play to him. Yeah, I'm happy for Tom, and with him obviously having his soccer team that are not so good. So it's nice for him to have a victory in with one of his teams, isn't it? Obviously a New York Jets fan as well. It's not been great for him, has it?
Here we are. Jord's come on. He's just landing punches left, right, and centre. Absolutely zero given. Just boosh, boosh. He's yeah. We're gonna cover the Natty today, Jord. That's primarily why we're here. We got a bit of news. We got some declarations and some sad news. Well, obviously, if you've seen the Alabama-Georgia game, you'll know that Jameson Williams he went down with an injury, left the game. It was pretty much obvious it was an ACL. It's been confirmed it's an ACL. We'll talk about this a little bit later and how that's going to possibly influence his decision to declare because he is an undergraduate. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But that is the sad news that come out of an absolutely fantastic national championship game. We'll start with some exciting news for not just former USC quarterback Jackson Dart, but for perhaps Lincoln Riley and an incoming star that he went out and went at Oklahoma. So, I mean, we talked about Jackson Dart. USC freshman quarterback Jackson Dart has reportedly entered the transfer portal. The true freshman played backup to Kedon Slovis this year, but however, still managed 1,353 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns when in for Kedon Slovis. Jord, does this pave the way for Caleb Williams to just enter the portal, slide down to USC and reunite with Lincoln Riley? Because they've only got Miller Moss, who appeared in one game for the Trojans. Obviously, Jackson Dart is a huge, I think he's either 4 or 5-star recruitment down at USC. With him entering the portal and Caleb Williams being available, is this just another piece in that Lincoln Riley puzzle that is firmly coming together down there?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Obviously, I know it's not always the case, but when you see movements like this happen, you can't help but think that is what it is. Maybe they've got word of it, or I don't know if they're just guessing, but it's like similar with UCLA, where Dylan Gabriel committed to UCLA. He obviously decommitted, went to Oklahoma, and then obviously, I think a week and a half later, Thompson and Robinson said that he's staying for another year. You say so. It always seems like there's more to it behind the scenes, like they know more. And it's strange how like it doesn't seem to escape, but like you'd expect it to come out, wouldn't you, in media? It's very, like they always seem to get hold of it, but you'd still think that is what's going to happen. I can't see anything else but it really, because obviously the quarterback they got from that committed to Oklahoma that was like decommitted and came back to USC is 2023, and so obviously they've got no quarterbacks coming in apart from Caleb Williams, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it would be naive of you and I and college football fans, and because I consider myself to be I mean, every time we chat, Jord, we talk about how we've been following the sport for relatively the same amount of a short period of time, really. And as much as we sit down and we do a podcast and then we write articles and stuff, I consider myself still sort of a casual fan of college football. I'm not a huge in-depth guy. I'm still learning, and it would be very naive of me. And I'm not talking on your behalf, but I am talking on your behalf here for us to think that there isn't other stuff going on that we just don't know about. And it would be the same in the NFL. I mean, we see all this stuff happening with the news. How much do we not see? So you're right, with these moves happening and then something happening, a reaction to a reaction, or whatever the scientific, for every reaction there's a equal unreact. No, I'm murdering here. There's some scientist rolling in his grave. I apologize. It would seem to me that you're right in the fact that these players are committing, decommitting when stuff has already happened, because they already know the news. But it was interesting, if you've seen the Caleb Williams' dad's interview talking about why they chose Oklahoma and why he wanted to, as soon as not Stetson Bennett, who was the Oklahoma quarterback, Spencer Rattler, as soon as he there was a trip up, Caleb Williams was in there, and apparently because Caleb Williams' dad and Caleb Williams, the reason they want to play high level football is they don't mind where they play. They want to play with somewhere where it's got NFL level coaching to get him ready for the next level, because he knows that that's where, regardless of NIL and stuff like that, that's where the money is. And I think the difference between the first overall pick and the 15th overall pick is $20 million. So that is a significant sum of money. And when you are going into it, like Caleb Williams and his dad, who I don't know whether he's his agent or what's going on with that relationship, but you can imagine he would be if he's so involved, that if you are that way driven, in the fact that you are looking to get to the NFL instantly, but not only instantly is the wrong word. If you're looking to get as a high draft pick into the NFL because you know the monetary value and you want to go to a team where they have NFL level quarterback coaching, there's only a handful of teams in college that offer that. So you've got USC, you've got obviously Oklahoma, where he was, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. Am I missing any? Is there any other schools you think they just, maybe Texas because of how long they've been about? But there's not many schools that I can think of past the group I just mentioned who will offer the level of NFL training that Caleb Williams wants. So if that USC job is open, if Lincoln Riley Lincoln Riley clearly would have him because he signed him at Oklahoma, it only makes sense to me that he would go down there to USC, especially if Jackson Dart is definitely in the transfer and out. The only thing I would say is the NIL deals down there possibly as good as going to an Ohio State like we saw with Quinn Ewers, but then even to go there would be madness because the state of the quarterback room, and you're not going to go to Bama because of just how good Bryce Young is and how he played this year. So I talked a lot there, Jord. I appreciate it. It feels to me that USC, after hearing his father talk, is exactly where he's going to be, and it fits perfectly with the puzzle they're making.
Yeah, I think you're right in everything that you said there. It's also like obviously you've got certain players like that, and obviously like the fact if his father's in his ear, he's saying like I say, it's a big difference in money. How high you go, but also like the people who are recruiting him. Like Lincoln Riley is like. You saw the Nick Saban interview yesterday, like with I don't know if you've seen it with Bryce Young and Will Anderson, where they go to stand up and he sits them back down, and he's saying that they don't let this game define these two players, and that connection's made before they when they're just about to come on campus on the phone and stuff, and so they've got this connection with them before they even sometimes play a game, and that's why you see a lot of people see it with Oregon, like obviously.
Oh, Jord, it took 10 minutes, 35 seconds, but there it is, Pac-12. Keep talking.
Seeing it with obviously in my instinct, obviously a Husky fan, the Husky wide receiver coach has gone to Oregon, and obviously a lot of them people who've committed have like left because obviously they have that connection. It's like you have to make up a new connection with a coach that's in there, and if you don't get that vibe also. But basically, I've done the same as you. I've carried on, but it seems like Caleb Williams had a big connection with Lincoln Riley as well, by the sounds of it. And he was one of the. I know a coach is always going to be a big reason why you go, but it seemed like there were a really close connection with them two there. So obviously, another reason why he would probably favour joining him at USC. And obviously, like you said, it's still a big school. Obviously, they've been a sleeping giant for a while now, but they've still got the name.
Yeah, and it comes. We've seen who Lincoln Riley has produced for the NFL in recent years with Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, and Kyler Murray. And obviously, if Caleb Williams and Williams' family are wanting to get to the NFL as a high draft pick, then we know what Lincoln Riley can do for quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, as you say, has obviously got a very good relationship with Lincoln Riley, and it's probably based on the fact that he's produced product for the NFL. Another piece to the puzzle of him going to USC. It makes too much sense. And I don't know whether we're thinking perhaps, does it make too much sense in the fact that this is just smoke and mirrors? But I don't know. It's something I found interesting with how he viewed his position in college football, because we see it more now I heard about it recently in a podcast where players, they don't love football specifically as much as perhaps they did back in the day when money wasn't as big a thing. Whereas now they know that if they're good at it and they grind it out for a few years, they can be set for life with a few millions. And if they're savvy with their money and make investments and stuff, it will sort them out. And we all know that college football leads to the NFL, and the NFL stands for not for long. And that's very true. So if you can get there and make your money, you don't have to love the sport anymore because the money is so big. So I think it's a very business decision, driven decision for Caleb Williams. It isn't as much as I think his partnership with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma is driving him towards another partnership at USC. I think it's a very business driven, and with NIL now, are we gonna perhaps see more of this type of decision where it's more business based and financial based, as opposed to, for instance, I'm a Texas kid, I'm going to go to Texas. That might not necessarily happen as much coming up because of money here leads to money there and stuff like that. I think it's all going to be very exciting and different in the upcoming years as to where we see with transferring and stuff like that.
No, I think you're right. Like, I think obviously there's people who grumble about it, like obviously jumping into the transfer portal, and obviously I think we could like, I'm not going to get into it now because obviously we could be here for ages, but I think there is better ways to do it as in the transfer portal as well. Obviously people jumping ship to like being able to play straight away. Like obviously following, like going to another thing where there's opportunities for sponsorship and things. But I think I'd be lying if I said that I wouldn't do the same. Obviously, like you said, it's you're one injury, one game, one injury away from your career being over in football. If you can get as much money as you can, that sets your family up the best you can in the future, you're gonna do everything you can, aren't you? Obviously, people, I know I would. Obviously, I've got kids and stuff. I'd love to be able to set them up for the future. And if people are willing to pay you ridiculous money sometimes for sponsorships, these people are not going to say no, are you?
No. It especially we're well off track, Jord, and I don't mind that at all. But in today's world where financial situation and stability, especially not post-pandemic because we're not out of it yet, but what the pandemic has done financially for people, it has made money even more of an important factor. And I'm not one of the people who thinks money is the be-all and end-all, but it certainly has made me realize just how important it is to be financially stable. And like you say, if you've got a family, if these kids can go out and earn X amount from NIL, but go to a school where they know they are going to be playing under a tutelage that will help provide them with a higher draft pick if they have the skill and ability to do so, therefore making more money out of their initial rookie contract, is all setting them up for the future. So it, like you say, you're bang on with your point about setting yourself up, and I would do it. You know, it, I I wouldn't have. I don't think I know anybody personally who would stand back and say, "Look, I'm not going to do it," because people love to say, you know, "Oh, it's only 20 grand or whatever the amount of money might be." But how rich do you think you'd have to be to give up on £20,000, or you know, £500,000, or whatever it might be? There isn't. £20,000 is a life changing amount of money for most people, and you can't just say, "Well, I'll give that to charity," or "I'm not going to take that contract because I'm a Texas lad," or you know, I just think it's a very sensitive and specific thing, financial talkings and stuff, and perhaps we shouldn't get into it because we might step on some toes, or I might offend some people with my takes or whatever. But it is a very interesting thing, and I think it's going to come even more so, like you say, with how we get forward with contracts and stuff. But we completely you know, skimmed over the Jackson Dart entering the transfer portal. Where do we think he goes? Because obviously he's a very high rated player in his own right.
Yeah, when he came in, you saw that there's something about him. Obviously, like you said earlier, he's a four-star recruit. I remember. I think he's from Utah. So I looked back to see, because a lot of them sometimes head towards home. Sometimes, but he's from Utah. So, and I think Utah are okay for the time
Yep.
being. Cam Rising. So yeah, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be able to have a guess. Like maybe Georgia. I don't know. I think JT Daniels is a junior, isn't he? So I think he's got another year on it. So obviously he might stay there and stuff. Is that it? I hope that's what I mean. I'm so focused on Pac-12. I just forget, there's so much going on. I forget. Is Stetson Bennett done now, or is he?
No, I think he's got one more year. I could well
One more
be.
year?
Yeah, I could be wrong on that, but I think Stetson Bennett has one more year.
So, well, if that's the case, then even that, but if JT Daniels stays, so it's going to be hard to see him getting over there. But yeah, there'll be a place for him. So he won't be surprised if he ends up coming back. You know, and like you say, yeah, he's only a freshman. You know, he's still got
Yeah,
years on the thing. But I suppose so was Caleb Williams, so he could be stuck around him a couple of years.
yeah, exactly that.
Tough one. I wouldn't like to take a guesswork because it could really be quite a few places at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fair. It would be a complete pluck out of the sky, just like you say. It could be a Georgia, or it could be a Tennessee, or it could, you know, all these places are just absolute darts at a dartboard right now. Let's move on to another quarterback. Nebraska have signed former Texas quarterback Casey Thompson from the transfer portal. Thompson looks to step in as the starter, who replacing Adrian Martinez, who recently transferred to Kansas State. So a big move for Nebraska and Casey Thompson, Jordan.
Well, obviously Quinn Ewers, we were on about earlier, quarterbacks moving around. Quinn Ewers has come in, so obviously Casey Thompson obviously don't fancy his chances, should I say, against him. And we've never seen him throw a ball in college, Quinn Ewers. So obviously he's very well touted. He's like his high school tapes very good of what I've seen. Obviously, this is where we need Ash to come in and tell us how good he actually is. Everything says that he's good, but we still don't know. But obviously, Casey Thompson has thought I've probably got a better chance of playing somewhere else, and gone over to Nebraska. Obviously, like Adrian Martinez has left there, so he should go into a starting role unless there's someone behind Nebraska. Obviously, I'm not a big, don't follow Nebraska. Sorry to any Cornhuskers out there. So I don't know if they've got anyone behind that can challenge him, but the way it looks like he's going into a starting job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've listened to a podcast by a pair of scouting guys, and one of them absolutely slated Quinn Ewers and some of his technical stuff. So watch this space. I mean, I could be well wrong, and I've not really dug into his high school tape enough. But yeah, this guy did not get on. Well, not get on, but he did not enjoy the tape of Quinn Ewers. So that could be huge. Auburn have their Bo Nix replacement. Former Texas A&M quarterback Zach Calzada has announced his commitment to the Tigers. As we saw, Calzada started 12 games for the Aggies in 2021. He threw for 2,185 yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions after replacing Haynes King in week 1. Wasn't the best season from Zach Calzada, so I don't know whether he is an upgrade on Bo Nix or not. My initial thing says no.
Yeah, I saw him a couple of times. Obviously, the early states. I saw him against Colorado. He played, and he looked a bit like a rabbit in the headlights a lot of the time. But I did see that he got better at the back end of the year.
He did.
He had a decent game against Alabama, but yeah, I wouldn't. You never. Sometimes going to a new team, it can bring out more in you. You know, your second year of like getting more games behind you. You can be obviously you can improve, but as it stands now, I'm same as you. I wouldn't. If I was a Texas A&M fan, I wouldn't be excited. Put it that way.
Yeah. I think we're in this. We're in the same boat on that. We're in the same boat on that. And then finally, Jord, the last point. Obviously, we saw Travis Hunter go to Jacksonville State, a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago now. The number 1 overall pick for 2022 class. Dion Sanders has pretty much gone and done it again. He signed 4-star wide receiver Kevin Coleman. So he's the second top 60 recruit to commit to Jacksonville State for the 2022 class. If Travis Hunter, he's projected to play cornerback primarily at Jacksonville State, but obviously we've seen him play wide receiver in high school. If they have Kevin Coleman and Justin Hunter playing wide receiver at Jacksonville State, that is an offense to watch out for. They also have gone against what we said with the money and the NIL for Caleb Williams to go to USC by both going to play for the coach, Dion Sanders, at Jacksonville State. Now, I'm unaware of the name, image, and likeness deals that Dion Sanders has helped them get down in Jacksonville. And I imagine it's fairly helpful to their cause and they've done all right out of it. But surely Dion Sanders is the main draw there as opposed to the money, right?
100%, I'd say so. Yeah. I just think about. I think if one of my favorite players, if I were a top prospect, obviously I'm definitely not, but if I was a top prospect going into college, and I saw one of my heroes, because I'm going to say that if you must know, everyone must know Dion Sanders, even if you weren't alive to watch him, you must have seen highlights of him over the time.
Well, Jord, you say obviously, we might have some listeners who don't know who Dion Sanders is. Who was he?
True. He's a very good player from the NFL before even I was born, I believe.
Right. And what position did he play?
He played wide receiver.
We've fallen apart. We've absolutely fallen apart. Okay. You're quite right. The fact that they've got the first and the second or the fourth wide receiver in this class to go to Jacksonville State is a coup in itself. Or to get Justin Hunter, regardless of where he's going to play. It is Justin Hunter, right?
I'm going to have to go with you there because I can't remember. I remember his video, putting the hat on.
Yeah. Can you look that up quickly for me? Because I'm fairly sure it is Justin Hunter, but I want to be 100% sure. The fact that he's got both of them to go there is very much, I think it is not only a name, image, and likeness and a monetary deal, but it's also using your prowess similar to a Nick Saban, similar to perhaps a Dabo Sweeney, that kind of draw as a coach. But he's doing it based on his playing talent and what he thinks he can do for these prospects, as opposed to come play for the best coach of all time at Alabama, come play at Clemson at Death Valley. You know what you're getting. Dion Sanders and Jacksonville State are drawing players in based on Dion Sanders, and that is a wrinkle that is very surprising to me, given the monetary way we talked a little while ago. But if Dion Sanders can do this at Jacksonville State, imagine what he can do at a school with draw power as well. It'd be unbelievable.
Yeah, it is Travis Hunter. You was right. Spot on.
Travis Hunter. I said Justin Hunter loads of times. I'm so sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
It was pretty close. It was pretty close. Yeah, Jord, any more thoughts on Jacksonville State and Dion Sanders getting Kevin Coleman?
Yeah, like you mentioned, obviously, I don't know if Dion Sanders had a word with their fathers, so we'll probably know him a bit better. But but yeah, it's great for them. It's great for a school, a college like that, to get talent like that. Because I wouldn't have thought anything like that would have happened. Like I say, we're very short watching college football, but every time I see top recruits, they always go to the best schools, and even like if it's not the best schools, it's your home school, your home college, from where you are. Obviously, there's quite a lot of. For my team, the Huskies obviously have come from Washington, the 4 or 5 stars, where they probably could have gone somewhere else. They chose to stay at home, but obviously great. And I don't know if this will probably be good for Jackson State as well, because obviously they might get some more games on prime time TV now, rather than obviously they're in a. I might be wrong here. You might have to back me up. I believe that they're a FCS team. Are they right?
I'm well out. Absolutely no clue.
I think they're an FCS team. So obviously great for them. But I'm probably wrong. Someone will probably correct me in the chat.
I think you're right. I mean, let's go with you're right. They're definitely an FCS school, George. You've got it right. What I would say is whoever the Jacksonville State quarterback is might well be a sleeper for next year's 5-yard showdown, Jord, because he's got some weapons to throw to now. Just saying. Right. Let's talk about some draft declarations. Obviously, LSU cornerback Derek Stingling has come out and said he's going to skip his senior year. He's going to enter the 2022 draft. The top 10 prospect only appeared 3 times this year in 2021 due to a foot injury and was highly expected to declare. This is now official. Absolutely no surprise here at all, Jord.
No, but you did think he was going to declare. I know, like, obviously, 2020 with COVID, he didn't have as many games. Obviously, with the injury this year, he didn't play many games. And the games he did play, he didn't look. He had the form of 2019 when he was unbelievable. But I think there's still enough there for him to go high, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's still the first cornerback coming off the board in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've briefly had a look at, this cornerback class is pretty deep and very skilled. So perhaps the injury knocks him a little bit, but from everything we've seen on tape so far, he is lights out. So I think it will just be the injury that perhaps knocks his draft stock a little bit. Michigan safety Daxton Hill has declared for the draft, skipping his senior year. Hill's draft stock has risen after a solid 2021 with the Wolverines and is in conversation with Penn State's Jaquan Brisker as the number 2 safety in the class. Daxton Hill was absolutely lights out for the Wolverines this year, Jord.
Yeah, what I've saw of him, like I didn't see much of him. I saw him in the game, even though they lost against Georgia, and he's a good safety. And like you said about the cornerback class being deep, the safety class is pretty decent this year. Obviously, you've got standout Hamilton, but behind him, there's quite a few safeties that are obviously you're going to mention Penn State's Brisker in a second. Brisker and Daxton Hill are fighting for number 2. So
it's okay, George. You can mention Utah here if you want.
But I won't. I'll leave it. But obviously, you got Jordan Battle, haven't you? And obviously, we'll mention the championship game, but Louis Stein, the Georgia safety, he had an unbelievable game as well. And I think I don't know if he said if he's entered the draft. Obviously, he's just finished a game over day, so he probably will come out soon and say if he's entering.
Yeah. Let's talk about our final declaration before we get to the national championship. It's DB Central this week for the draft, as Clemson cornerback Andrew Booth will forego his final college year and enter the 2022 draft. Booth is being touted as one of the top 5 cornerbacks in this class and a definite first-round prospect. So we've already mentioned 2 of them, Derek Stingley and now Andrew Booth. Clemson losing a key piece of their defense. However, they are Clemson, so I imagine next year they'll just replace that with another absolute beast at corner. I haven't really heard much about Andrew Booth this year, so I don't know how he got on, Jord. As we mentioned, this DB class is really deep, and from what I've seen of mock drafts, the whole defensive side of the draft is very deep and not necessarily deep, but a lot better than the offensive side. So we could see 12 to, I don't know, maybe even 14 picks on the defensive side before we see somebody come in for an offensive player, unless somebody values one of these quarterbacks stupid high and needs to come and get one. It's going to be this year compared to last year for me is already very unsure as to how the draft is going to go, with the teams at the top being the same teams and getting their quarterbacks last year. So it's going to be, there's a few teams that need a quarterback, but are they going to take them that high? Are they going to trade back? Will we see, who's going to trade up for a defensive player or an offensive lineman? It's going to be, I don't think it's as locked in for me, the top 5 picks, as the last couple of years, because of the unquarterback neediness of this draft. That's a terribly way of putting it, but you get me, right?
Yeah. Obviously, I'm just typing up my first mock draft for the site.
Oh.
I won't do any spoilers. Just the first 18 picks, but it's like you said. It's not. I'm looking at them. I'm thinking, well, this team probably could do with a quarterback, but are they going to like any of these quarterbacks? Because, like you say, it's not the best. I'm not saying that these quarterbacks aren't going to go on to be good players, but as you look at it, they're going to be thinking, well, if we add to defense now, if we were about this position next season, we might be able to trade up and do something for. You've got people like Bryce Young and thing coming out, aren't you? So it's looking a much better class. So it is a tough one. Like I said, I've got most of my top players are defensive players, but do teams see it that way and think, well, if everyone's picking defense, we've got the best shot of picking the best wide receiver right now, or we've got the choice of quarterback. So it's definitely going to be an interesting draft for sure. And obviously we've still got free agency and all, if there's going to be any trades. But
yeah, what we're going to do, Jord, is last year we did a first round video mock draft. Excuse me. We're going to be doing that again. We're going to do more of them this year. So we're going to have a draft board on the screen. You'll be able to follow along, Rush Nation. It's going to be an absolute hoot. We're going to do several of those, if not 2 or 3 or 4. We've also got mock drafts coming out. Jord has already started writing his player reviews. There is a reason, Jord, why I haven't put them out yet. I just haven't told you. So I will tell you, but they're going to be coming out very soon regardless. It is draft season. The Natty's out the way. You said no spoilers, Jord. What have you got Denver doing at wherever they're drafting? Where are they drafting from now? 8?
Number 9.
9, okay.
And obviously this is very early. Like I say, people love mock drafts, but they also love criticising your picks. And obviously there's been no free agency. There's a lot of teams without head coaches. Obviously, when your new head coach comes in, he might see it totally different. But I have got you getting a quarterback.
Oh, no. Okay, carry on.
And even though he had an injury, I like him now.
I didn't get that, George. Your internet went. Your suspense is even greater now. What did you say?
Matt Corral, yeah.
I don't hate that. Of the class, I don't hate that.
It's a very early one, like I said. If
George, you don't have to defend yourself. It's fine. We've all got takes.
Yeah, if it were another team, I wouldn't be defending myself, but I feel like I have to because I've got to do. I don't know who you want in as a head coach, but say you get a defensive person, and you might end up getting someone might get Nakobe Dean, alongside Bradley Chubb. So I don't know.
Yeah,
head coach makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think there's a massive, it hugely depends on free agent. We're talking about the NFL now, and we've got way off topic, Rush Nation. Sorry. It hugely depends on what Denver do quarterback wise and whether they go after somebody in free agency, whether they make a trade for Aaron Rodgers. Although the more I'm hearing, that doesn't seem to be a thing now. But they were willing to part with 2 or 3 first round picks, Bradley Chubb and Tim Patrick, and that's a lot to give up. I think depending on whether the edge rushers slide a little bit, we might go up and get one of the edge rushers because we've got to replace Von Miller. Obviously, we have got Bradley Chubb. If Kyle Hamilton's there, we absolutely slam that at 8. But I can't see him making it that far because he's unbelievable. Interesting, Jord. I'm looking forward to reading that and giving you my personal review when I get it in my inbox. Don't you worry, it's coming. Okay, let's talk some Natty. First of all, in your few years of watching it, is this the best one you've seen?
Yes, because you saw 2 halves of just like what. Like I'm one of. I know a lot of people like high scoring games. They like the offense, but I'm in the middle. Obviously, I like the offense. I really like defense. Good defense is great to watch, and we saw. Obviously, the defense was still okay in the second half, but we saw good defense in the first half on both sides. It was fun to watch, getting at the quarterback, getting after him, linebackers and everything. And then in the second half, we started seeing points on the board. And it was always, apart till the end, it was always, even though Georgia were the better team in the fourth quarter and they pulled away a bit, Alabama still had the ball. And obviously, they were 8 points behind. And you still thought, even without Jameson Williams, they could still do this. Bryce Young could still get him in a position and they could tie this up, It's not beyond possibility. And so it were always there. And that's the only thing I was worried about before the game. I thought, I really hope Alabama don't run away with this, like they did in the SEC championship game.
Yep.
And I think we got what we all wanted. We want a competitive game, like Georgia, there were no argument the win of it, but it was still a competitive game between 2 sides. And obviously, it might have been different if Jameson Williams didn't go down. It probably will have been, a big threat downfield, and obviously experience. But I said it in the chat to Ash. I said I still think I get what Ash is saying about these freshmen. They've never been in big games like this before. But I thought Bryce Young, even though he got sacked and he got hurried, I still think he had a fantastic game, and he had 3 or 4 throws that were just on the money. But receivers just couldn't bring him in. They were in big moments in the second half where they could have put themselves in the red zone and in Georgia half, and who knows what would have happened. But ifs, buts, and monkey nuts, Georgia are the champions, aren't they? So it doesn't matter.
You can sit here and talk about how Jameson Williams only had 4 catches for 65 yards in the first quarter, was on pace for 16 catches and 210 yards or whatever, and probably a touchdown or 2. But that never happened. So there's no point in saying that could have happened. If you have been living under a rock, and for some reason this is the only way you get your college football knowledge and information, we thank you very much. And if you would head over to YouTube and hit the like and subscribe button, you won't ever miss a video or mine or Jord's lovely faces. Georgia did beat Alabama 33-18. It was definitely, as you say, Jord, a game of 2 halves. What made it even better was the fact that both of these teams are chock full of NFL talent. And that made it, when you watch defense in college, if you get a team like Georgia take on, let's just say, a Jacksonville State, because we've talked about them, it's an absolute whitewash. You're talking about 45-0. The defense is playing against almost under 16s. These are grown-ass men, really, essentially, and it's not the same thing. Whereas this is the best 2 teams in college football going at it on an NFL level, on an NFL stage, and defense was the name of the game. And we don't often see that in the modern era of football, whether it be college or whether it be the NFL. Defense used to win championships. Now it is all about offense. And it's very interesting that this is the first time since 2018, I think, where Alabama averaged around 4-point-something yards a play, 4.2, 4.3 yards a play. That never happens. Obviously, that's 3 years now. They've not done that in 3 years. That shows you just how good the Georgia defense is. And the whole rhetoric of this game was Bryce Young carved open Georgia in the SEC championship game. How were Georgia going to react? They didn't sack Bryce Young in that first game. And everyone's saying, yeah, they got 3 sacks in this game and there was a lot more pressure and hurries. And yes, there was, but they only sacked him once before the fourth quarter. So it wasn't really that much of a different game plan. What Georgia did really well this time is they changed how they played on defense, how they showed on defense. What I've heard Georgia do is that they show whenever they blitz, they drop somebody back into coverage. It's always a numerical number that stays around and floats around the pitch. Whereas this time they didn't do that as much. And when they showed 5 blitz, they bought 5 or dropped people into coverage when perhaps they shouldn't have been. And that may have confused Bryce Young. Yes, it confused him. But as you say, he had a really good game up until the fourth quarter. And the score is flattering for Georgia. This isn't me saying Georgia didn't deserve it because they were the best team in college football this year. 33-18 is a little bit harsh when the fourth quarter there was a pick six and a late touchdown. The Georgia were the better team. Bryce Young was hurried and Georgia did enough. But this is all about Kirby Smart winning it the old school way of football with defense and running the football. And today it was enough. Whereas in the SEC championship game, it wasn't. And it just shows you that any given Saturday in this case is a very different thing. And when you've got 2 talented head coaches like Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, the rematch is always going to be a different result. Yes, it's difficult, or isn't it not difficult to beat a team twice? Take what you will of that. Good coaches will find a way to change their game plan, and Georgia did just enough.
Yeah, like you said, you look at the score, you look at the box score, and you think, oh, a couple of scores, it must have been, maybe not, I'm not saying it would, people would think, oh, yeah, it's definitely easy, but you think, oh, 2 scores between a team must have easily deserved it. And they did deserve it, but like you said, the pick six, obviously, at the end when they were coming forward. But Stetson Bennett, I know, let's get it out of the way, fantastic for him winning it. You saw how emotional he was at the end. I like stories like that. It makes me love the game even more when I see things like that. But for the first 3 quarters, it looked like he was going to lose it, didn't he? The occasion looked like it got the better of him. He looked panicky. Obviously saw with the when he tried to throw the ball away, which was a weird set of play. When he looked,
Yeah.
I remember who it was who caught the ball for Alabama, and it nonchalantly just caught it, thinking, "Oh, the play's dead." But luckily, had his foot in play and got it. But yeah, he was like a rabbit in the headlights for the first 3 quarters, and then obviously you saw the interview after the game where I think they asked him, I can't remember the exact question, and they said, and he replied, "I wasn't going to be the reason why we lost this game." And he had a fantastic fourth quarter. Obviously, got the free play to hit to get the touchdown in the corner, but it was much better in the fourth quarter, and that kind of swung it into the favour of Georgia. And Alabama just couldn't get the ball downfield, went to try and tie it up, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I wanted to stay up for it, but I knew I had a busy day at work on the Tuesday, so I had to stay off social media all Tuesday, which was very hard, very, very hard. And I watched it on Tuesday evening and fully enjoyed it. Just a fun game. Everything about it. There was nothing. I don't think that really. I don't know if you can think of anything, but I can't think of any decisions where it spoiled the game either. I thought it was just a great game of football.
Yeah, it was. You're right. I don't think there was anything that was that ref has got that wrong or whatever. It was a great game of football. It was two-halved, like you say, and I think we saw it in the first game. Alabama, yes, they've got a great running back in Ryan Robinson Jr., but he's not elite. And whilst he worked hard in this game, he never got anything out of it. 22 carries for 68 yards. It's only 3 a carry, and that's because you're going up against the Georgia front seven, who are NFL. Every single one of those guys could walk into an NFL team right now. So what Georgia did in hurrying Bryce Young and perhaps flushing him into areas he wasn't necessarily as comfortable with is how they won the game, because Alabama didn't win the game on the ground. They outgained Georgia through the air. They had 369 yards compared to Georgia's 224 through the air. It was the ground game that we expected Georgia to have with Zamir White and James Cook, who I only recently found out is Dalvin Cook's younger brother. Did not know that. So that's got to be some pedigree right there for James Cook. Zamir White is obviously could declare. I think he goes back and has one more year at Georgia, given the class of this year's running backs with Isaiah Spiller and Bryce Hall and stuff like that. I think he goes back. But we've seen Zeus have a great game for Georgia. And when you've got a game plan that is working, when the Georgia defense is doing what they're doing and doing it well enough to keep Bryce Young not necessarily out, because he's still got them into scoring territory, but it was just the perfect game plan for Georgia. And it could well have been different had a couple of catches been made by Hall and perhaps Ja'Cory Brooks or whoever else was out there, Slade Bolden. But these guys, they are young and they're still learning. So it's a big loss, Jameson Williams and John Mechie obviously not playing as well. But whilst they are freshmen, you'd expect a little bit more from these guys who are Alabama bound players. Because you imagine your Jerry Jeudy or your Henry Ruggs when they were at Alabama, they would have come in and made plays had they been a freshman in this situation. So I don't know. It was a great game of football. I want to watch the whole thing. I've only seen the extended highlights. I want to sit down and watch the whole thing. I haven't had time yet, but I can't think of one in the last 4 years that I think is a better overall game of football, Jordan, than this one was.
No, I think obviously the games before obviously started off tight, but a team's always ended up running away with it, but like being comfortable, winners. This were up until the end, like I say, the pick six made it look even one side is not the best term, but it looked easier than it actually was. And like you say, just like I mentioned, I know Ash has said that the wide receivers are freshmen, but I think a couple of catches I don't think they were that hard of catches, but maybe the occasion was, which I was disappointed in Jaleel Billingsley. I know he's like a 5-star tight end, and I know he hasn't had the best of seasons either, but I think there were that pick, weren't they, where he just didn't get off the block and he just kind of gave up on it, instead of try to get off the block and try to either make, at least if you're not going to think you're going to get the catch, at least try and make a play on the guy to maybe not get the interception, but he just kind of stopped. And obviously he's entered the transfer portal now. I don't know how much of that is him thinking I want to get out of here, it's not being great, or Salah not being happy with him.
And we talk about the defensive side of the ball. Keely Ringo's interception made his day because he hadn't been great up until then. And then we've got the Alabama guys, obviously, that we are talking about for the draft. Will Anderson Jr. is an absolute monster. That guy could play pretty much anywhere you want him to play in the NFL. And then Christian Harris had a great game. DeMarco Helms. There was some good defensive individual performances amongst the team performances, Jord.
Yeah, obviously we know how good Georgia are on defense, and they had obviously the front three, Jordan Davis and Trayvon Walker, Devontae Wyatt. Like I say, I could just keep going for the Kobe D.
Exactly.
They're all great, but what really impressed me, and like I say, I always watch the Pac-12 and I try and catch as much as the other stuff I can. Obviously, the SEC is normally on early time for us in the UK, so I do catch a bit of Bama games, but I'm nowhere near an expert on the SEC. But Dallas Turner, I haven't heard much about him, but he was unbelievable, and he'll be a guy that I'll be watching out next year. Only a freshman, but it just obviously I know you've got Will Anderson and Dallas Turner there next year. This was I know, and Jake's a big Alabama fan, and I've seen him mention it on Twitter, and he is right. This was meant to be Alabama's down year. And it's look at the talent that's coming back next year from they'll be okay, obviously, but it's good to see someone else win it. I know Jake won't like me saying that as well, but it is nice as an outsider to see someone else win it as well. But they'll be fine next year. Alabama, they'll probably win it.
Well, I think they're currently odds on to win it next year at Caesars Palace bookmakers. What is hugely interesting is you can currently get Ohio State at 10-1. Which I think is decent money for next year. I think that's really good odds for a team that will be better than Georgia next year, purely based on talent returning alone. Yes, Ohio State are losing 2 of their key wideouts, but we've seen them with a couple more up their sleeve who are also fairly good. Anything else from this game, Jord, that you want to take away before I ask you who's going to win it next year?
I think we've covered most. Like I say, I mentioned it, but I mentioned it again. I'm really happy for Stetson Bennett because obviously you see how much it meant to him. Obviously, the story came out of Kurt Warner at Christmas, didn't it, in a film? But you could easily make the Stetson Bennett one a film if you, if you could, because obviously he's gone through a lot, hasn't he, through his career, like being knocked, and it just shows you, like obviously you see one mentioning quarterbacks jumping out from the team because they see someone who's a better prospect coming in, thinking, oh well, I'm not going to get him, but this guy's just stuck around, and he's finally got his chance, and he's and again, he's not the greatest quarterback. He's not going to go on to the next level in the NFL and like be a Bryce Young at the next level. But what a win for him, and he'll have that with him for the rest of his life.
Regardless of what he does for the rest of his life, whether it be an office job or whether he be some form of football player's coach, he's going to have a national championship trophy where on his desk or on his cabinet or whatever, and that is all that matters. You play in college to win a Natty, and I don't know what it works out as college football players. It's like 0.3% go to the NFL or something like that. So, yeah, Stetson Bennett walked on and won a national championship with Jordan. The story is there for Disney to go and get and make a series or a film out of, because it is definitely there, Jord. It's been an emotional roller coaster as the co-host of 5 Yard College for this first season of college football for me, hosting the podcast. I think as a squad, Jord, we've done fairly well through the season. The articles have been on point. The podcast has done well. Ash and I have somehow managed to get on, considering he's some sort of Middle-earth battling dwarf killer. No, that came out wrong. From middle, whatever. You understand. You hear. Do we think Bama win it next year, Jord?
I'd say so, but I didn't realise Ohio State were 10-1. That is a nice little bet because, like I say, I look at the freshmen and the players that are coming back next year. For Alabama, even people in their second year. And obviously we don't know the juniors that might stay on. Like obviously a lot of some of them will go to. Well, definitely some of them will go to the NFL, but some of them might fancy if they fancy winning another one and think they're in a better position next year.
Yep.
So I would say that they're the rightful favourites, and I'd expect them to win as it stands. But all it takes is a few. Obviously, I don't wish that on anyone, but we know that players get injured, and all it takes is a few injuries. And Ohio State at 10-1, I'd be. If I was a betting man, I'd be, which I am.
I was gonna say
what? A little bit on that early, because I don't know if that'll shrink down, because that's. I think. Look, thinking about it now, I don't see why. We're Ohio State 10-1, and they were second favourites with
Georgia. Georgia are 4-1.
That's surprising to me. I'm like you said. I think Ohio State at the moment will look a better team than Georgia going into next year. We know with the talent Georgia are losing. I'm sure they have people coming in, but Ohio State look primed for a good year. They're also kind of on a down. I know, like you said, they're losing two of their wide receivers, but they showed in the Rose Bowl that I think they're okay in that department.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there is a curse of 5 Yard College. Any team that we talk about in a positive light, as we saw with everyone bar Cincinnati, gets put to the sword. So Ash, Jack, Jordan, are very sorry. Our love for the odds of Ohio State winning the Natty next year have murdered your chances. So you heard it here first. They're not winning it, and any money you put on will be a waste. Let's get that price higher so me and Jord can lump on. Rush Nation, that concludes the 2021/2022 season for college football. But it's draft season, baby. We're all about it. We're going to be diving into some players. We're going to be doing some mock drafts. Ash has got a whole load of stuff locked and loaded, ready to go. Although he isn't here currently, he's out somewhere in the Shire. That joke will get better as it goes on. Jord, if anyone's listening for the first time, where can they find you? Where can they find your stuff?
Obviously, if you're watching, it's on the screen there, Jord M87. But if you're not, it's Jord M87. But all my stuff is on the fantastic site that is 5 Yard Rush/5 Yard College. We're all one, but we are 5 Yard College as well. So you can find all my stuff on there. And like you said, there's going to be a lot coming. A lot of Pac-12 as well.
But he thinks, Rush Nation, there's going to be a lot of Pac-12. At the moment, it's currently down to me as to how much goes out. So we'll see, Jord. We'll see. No, listen, brother, it's always an absolute pleasure to have you on. We'll be back, no doubt. There's more Pac-12 to come. It's the off-season. And there unfortunately are some Pac-12 players entering the draft. So we're going to need your knowledge on those going forward. Rush Nation, if you are new to the podcast, welcome. Thank you for staying with us. If you have just joined at this point in the college season, we thank you massively because it is a huge commitment now going into draft season. If you are not following us on Twitter, follow us at 5 Yard College. If you are keen to watch another video to see Jord, Ash, me, one of the others, hit the like, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You'll get a notification when we go live. It's going to be Monday nights going forward because apparently that is when Middle Earth is a little less stressful for Ash. So it will be Mondays at 8 going forward. Rush Nation, it's been an absolutely fantastic college football season. I started the celebrations by winning the showdown. Georgia finished it for Tom by winning the Natty. Leaves me one final thing to say for this week. That's almost said this year, but it is just the beginning of the year. God, the year's gone way too quick already. Rush Nation, Saturdays are for rushing too.